Hey Mom Talks, Elizabeth here with Mommy's Gonna Snap and Ginger Snap Studios. And today we are going to be talking about resizing. I know that this is a frustrating topic, so bear with me. I'm going to be doing some visual representation of why you can't do the thing that I know frustrates you the most. And I'm going to then be diving into Photoshop and I'm going to show you how I resize my images for Facebook, number one. And number two, I'm going to show you how I resize my images for print. I'm just going to give you a disclaimer here. This is the way that I do things that make sense to me. It ensures for me that I get great prints. My images are set up the way that I want them every single time. And I know that it kind of contradicts maybe the way that other people do things. Now, I don't have a problem with that because, like I said, this works for me. If this works for you, great. If it doesn't, then by all means, find a different method. It's totally up to you. There are so many different ways to do things in Photoshop that, I will never sit here and claim that what I do is the best way, but it's what works for me. So, that being said, let's dive right into our visual representation. Now, I know what really bothers you guys is you have this beautiful photo, you've framed it, you've made it perfect, it's composed the way you want it, you've edited it to perfection, and you're ready to make a print. And this is what happens. You take this photo and you put it into your printer software, and it tells you that you can't fit it in there. It crops it funny, it makes it look weird, and you're like, no, this is not what I want. And you struggle for hours and hours and hours to try to figure out how to get this image to fit in that size print. And you can't do it. And I know that drives you nuts. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why. Your camera shoots at a particular ratio. My camera is set up to shoot a 2:3 ratio, which means that it's going to make a perfect 4:6. See how we're multiplying 2 by the 2 and 2 by the 3, and we get 4:6. That also means I can make an 8:12, and so on and so forth. So those are the sizes that my camera shoots, and I believe that's the default size for most cameras. And that means that when you go to try to print that 8:10, you have 2 inches, so to speak. Let's just put it in inch terms. You have 2 inches of space that has to come from somewhere. It has to be cropped off. And that's the reason that you can't make things fit. You can't take an image that would be in ratio at an 8:12 and shove it into an 8:10. Now let's just assume that this is an 8:10 picture frame. It's not. I think this is like a 5:7. But anyway, and let's assume that this is our 8:12 image. My daughter Skylar drew this for me. I said, I need a picture to play with, and so she drew this for me. So if we try to fit this in this frame and we don't want any cropping and we're smushing our image in, it distorts and it's not going to look right. If we try to smush those pixels together, this is what you're doing with the pixel data when you try to force it. You get distortion like this. You have to crop the image in order for there to not be distortion. So that is the physical representation. And I know that that's really frustrating. So my advice is that if you know that your clients that you're shooting for or for your own personal wall gallery, you know you want that 8:10, give yourself that extra bit of space that you can crop out in the end. That way you don't get frustrated when you go to make your size. Now let's jump into Photoshop, and I'm going to show you how to size for Facebook, and I'm going to show you how to resize for your prints and how you can ensure you get your print exactly the way that you want it. Hey Mom Togs, we are now in Photoshop and we're going to be working with this image of my sweet little Pippa here. I'm going to be showing you how to resize for Facebook. The way that I do this is I go up here to the image tab and I scroll down to image size. You can see the shortcut there, Alt Control plus I. I don't use shortcuts, I don't like them. And we're just going to be working with the width here because this is the long edge. Facebook compresses heavily anything that is above 2049 pixels. So in order to avoid that ugly, nasty Facebook compression, we change this to 2048 pixels per inch. Up here you can see the change in our file size. We've gone from 69.1 all the way down to 8.01, so that's a really huge difference in the file size. This is a good file size for Facebook. Now the resolution, there are two schools of thought on this, and I'm going to share that with you. Resolution is how many pixels per inch in your image. I leave this for 300 for posting for my portfolio viewing on Facebook, on my website, for Instagram. I want that clarity. I don't want to toss any of the pixels and lose any of that data because I want the images to look their 100% best. When I deliver a client web size images, I change the resolution down to anywhere between 72 and 100 pixels per inch. And the reason that I do this is because when I give a client web size images, I do not want them to be able to print them. They are specifically for web use only. And there are people out there who will print your watermarked web size versions and put them up in their house. But if they can't print them and they look pixelated when they even try to print a 4x6, then you can avoid that issue and they will have to come to you for print. So that's just a professional photographer protection perspective on that. Have your images look awesome on the web for your portfolio use and your personal use. Give your clients a lower quality web size image so that they can't print them. They'll still look good on the web and on Facebook, but you don't want them to be able to print them, would be my advice. So we're going to leave this here at 300 because we're doing a Facebook for personal use, portfolio use, and resampling is just, we want that to be automatic. Then we're going to click OK, and as you can see, it's resized it. It's now smaller. I can zoom in here, and you can see the quality and the clarity still looks the same. Now, something else that you might want to do, and I do this sometimes, is I will sharpen up this image for screen viewing a little bit. Some screens can make images look like more matte and everything, so I go to layer and duplicate layer, and then we're just going to run a simple high pass filter. And I'm going to set this to, we don't need it to be a huge number of pixels. I'm going to set this to about 5. We'll try that, see how that looks. And then we're just going to go over here and select soft light. And if I click this on and off, you can see there's definite difference in the sharpness of the image. And this is going to look really nice on the screens. And then we just flatten this. And then you're just going to save it like you save a regular JPEG. So you're going to go File, Save As, JPEG, and I'm just going to call this Pippa Resized, JPEG, save. And I always save quality 12, it's maximum, this is large file, progressive, scans 5. And I click OK. And there is our image sized for the web, for Facebook particularly. Now, let's talk about how we do prints. Let's say I want to take this image and I want to print an 8x10. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to step back from all of these little things that we did here. So we're back we're back to our big full-size image here. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to save this ginormous file. I'm just going to call this PIPA for print. I'm just going to save that. I'm going to click OK because that's all perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, New. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to inches. And I want my width to be 10 inches and my height to be 8 because we're going to be printing an 8 by 10. Resolution 300. Color mode is fine and color profile is fine. Okay, click OK. Now this is my canvas. This is my 8 by 10 sized canvas. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Place. And I'm going to find our little image here, PIPA for print. And I'm going to place this in here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up to the edges here, just like this. And now that I've filled in the top portions, I'm going to move her over like this. Now, if I tried to force this in here, look at that distortion. That's not good. So we want to keep her off center because that's most pleasing to the eye. And you can see like this is all the area that we have to cut off. We cannot force it. We'll either be short on the top or the bottom here, or we will be clipping on the sides. Just like when I showed you with the picture frame in the picture, like we can't force it, or we're going to be squishing those pixels and making them look ugly. So I'm happy with that, and that is our 8 by 10. That is what we would receive from the printer as an 8 by 10. And now I'm just going to show you if this were an 8 by 12. It fits perfectly. See that? See how that works? So this is what our 8 by 10 would have to look like because we're lobbing off 2 inches of data, 2 inches of data space rather. So you can't force this. I'm sorry, you just can't. I know it's frustrating, but if you keep that in mind when you're shooting, it really won't be as big of a deal. Once you get used to this idea that you want to leave yourself some extra space. Now, to save this for print, what I would do is flatten this image. And now we want to sharpen this for the printer, especially if you're using a really matte paper. You want to do a little bit of sharpening. And you also, if you're using a luster print paper, you want to do maybe a little bit more sharpening than you would for the matte paper, just because you can lose some of the clarity of the image in that texture that luster paper has. So again, we just go over here and we duplicate the layer and go to Filter, Other, oops, clicked too fast, Filter, Other, High Pass. And when I sharpen for print, I do mine at anywhere from 8 to 10. Change this to soft light. And once we flatten this and save it, it is ready for print. And that's it. Very, very, very simple technique, very easy way to do this. I know that there's a lot of advice out there about you want this many pixels and that many pixels and all that sort of stuff. I don't mess around with that because I've tested that and I've tested this, and I find that this works perfectly every single time. It's not confusing. It's super easy to do, and it's not time consuming, and you don't have to memorize a bunch of gobbledygookity numbers, which really, like, who has the brain space for that when you're a mom and you're trying to run a business and be creative? It's like there's no brain space for that. So This is a very simple, easy way to do it. I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that this helped kind of make sense why you can't resize things to certain sizes and prints. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I will get back to you guys, definitely. And if you liked this video, please subscribe. Please join me on Facebook in my Facebook group. Please give me some likes and some love, you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great one.